Well, the game starts in the Food City Center, Kentucky and Tennessee, 3 Central, I believe, Max, on CBS. What have you got here with that and any injury situations for either team? I guess mostly Kentucky in this case.
Well, unusually, we don't have many injuries with Kentucky right now. We actually don't have any off the top of my head. That's wild to think after how this season has gone. Trey Mitchell played in the last game, didn't play as many minutes, but I think that was more because of foul trouble, not because of any injury. So I think for a rare occasion, we'll have both teams at full health here. How they've been playing recently, I don't know exactly what the spread's gonna end up at, because I feel like with how hot Kentucky has been, that's gonna hold a lot of weight. KenPom has this as a 9-point game. I would be really surprised if Vegas shoots out a 9-10 point underdog for Kentucky. But the books do know it's at the Food City, whatever it is. So they're gonna heavily tax that Tennessee side. When I'm looking at Bart Torvik and I'm filtering just from February on, Tennessee's the number 3 team in the country, which is right on par with where I would think they would be. Kentucky's at 24. They've got the 7th adjusted. What's up?
Since what date?
Since February 1st.
Wow. Okay, I would have thought better.
Right, me too. So I dove a little bit deeper into it. 7th offense, 143rd defense. I think that's a little bit skewed from that first Tennessee game and the Gonzaga game. I think they're playing different than 3 weeks ago. I really do. So just off the initial reaction from numbers and stats and recent trends, I think this one is going to be tighter than the computers are showing us. I would think a 3-possession spread would be pretty wide for this one. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect this to be double digits. Again, because I just can't see it. Now, could Tennessee win by double digits? Of course they could. Tennessee's good enough to do it, and I mean they did it last time, right? It was 103-92 or whatever. So sure, but I don't, because I mean, look, like we said too, we said this in previous videos, like Kentucky has been much better since that point. After really that Gonzaga game, they've really turned it on, as we know. And so, their buzzer beater loss away from LSU from being 7-0 during that stretch. And so, yeah, it's hard to maybe see that just from in terms of a spread standpoint. But again, it's a big matchup because there is a lot on the line for both teams. Of course, Tennessee's already wrapped up the SEC regular season title. They know they'll be the number 1 seed next week. But if you're Kentucky, here's the issue, right? Is you've got a lot on the line because, quite frankly, you could wind up you may not get a double bye, if you don't win this game, right? So, because you've got 4 teams at 12-5 right now. That's right. Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina. So Auburn, great matchup against Georgia. Alabama, great matchup against Arkansas. South Carolina, iffy on the road against Mississippi State. Kentucky's got the toughest matchup of the group. And so what happens if they're the one team that doesn't win? Well, Kentucky will be playing on Thursday in the SEC tournament, right? So they'll be the 5 seed at that point. I think that would be the scenario. Although, even at that point, oh boy, we're starting to talk our way. Florida plays Vanderbilt. If Florida win, so Tennessee's got a lot on the line in terms of the number 1 seed. But Kentucky, I think, technically could fall as low as 6, I believe.
Wow.
So, something to play for the Cats here, too. So,
Max, I want to ask you a question while I give a couple of things to watch on this game. Run the Bart Torvik sim for February 13th on. That was the first game after the Gonzaga loss. That's when Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Since then, Kentucky's one loss has been to LSU. It has won 6 of 7 games. Now, look, there's an Arkansas in there. There's a Vanderbilt in there. There's an Ole Miss in there. But there's also an Auburn in there and an Alabama and a Mississippi State in there, too, in terms of wins. The one loss, again, that one loss thing at the buzzer to LSU. I'm wondering if the data looks a little different, especially on the defensive side with Kentucky just over that span. While you're doing that, just a reminder that Tennessee, I think everybody that watches SEC basketball knows this is a different team with Dalton Connect. But in the past, you kind of viewed Tennessee as a team that was maybe better suited to grind out wins and just hope that it didn't grind its own offense into oblivion in that process by having those scoreless streaks that Tennessee has been famous for having in recent years. But Tennessee has won some really high-scoring games. I mean, the Vols seem like more often than not lately. They've been in the 80s. Now, that was different last time out against South Carolina. And then a little bit of a surprise, the Alabama game didn't get as high-scoring as I would have thought, but beat Auburn 92-84. You know, has beaten Kentucky 103-92. Point is, with Connect and some of the weapons Tennessee's got, because Tennessee does have some scoring balance, you would expect with Kentucky this to be a higher-scoring game. Tennessee is now built to win that kind of game. So there's that, first of all. Other stuff on the matchup of interest, you always watch the free throws in a game like this. These are teams that have got a lot of green on the offensive side. Tennessee's one issue is maybe getting in foul trouble. Tennessee 262nd in the country in free throw to field goal attempts as a defense. So that's one thing. Kentucky's probably got a little bit more depth in terms of just bodies it can use than Tennessee. Not that Tennessee's is bad, but those are a couple things that I'm taking an eye on in this game is tempo. I think I know where that's going to go, and foul trouble could be a little bit of an issue and where the whistle goes on the game.
Yeah, all great points. And honestly, Chris, you were right on. When I look at the data from just February 13th on, Kentucky's ranks 18th in the nation, and their defense, when you look back all the way from February 1st, it was 143rd, but just from the 13th on, it's 65th. So
Okay.
They definitely made a big defensive improvement, but so has Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is only allowing 85.6 points per 100 possessions over the last few weeks, which is second in the nation. I would assume maybe only Houston has a better number there. So Tennessee's defense has also really ramped it up. Real quick, I think it's important to note that in the first game that these guys played, it was a Saturday game, and I'm taking nothing away from Tennessee here. I'm absolutely taking nothing away from Tennessee because, any win on the road against a top 20 KenPom team is valuable. But for the Kentucky angle, they did not have DJ Wagner or Justin Edwards, I don't think. They might have had Edwards. I think they had Edwards, but they didn't have Edwards the game before when they played Florida in overtime, and Reed Sheppard played all 45 minutes. Now, that was on a Wednesday, and so then you take that shorthanded overtime game and flip it right into Tennessee. That's a brutal turnaround. So when we like to talk about spots and whatnot, that Kentucky-Tennessee first game, that was a brutal spot for Kentucky, catching Tennessee shorthanded after an OT loss in the midweek. Just wanted to throw that out there also.
All right, so I want to make a correction. I said earlier Kentucky could fall to the 6th seed. Based on the gazillion tiebreakers out there, they can't. They're going to fall as low as a 5 seed. So for any Kentucky fans that were screaming at the computer screen or whatever, let me just, you guys want to see this? Like, look at this for Kentucky. Absolute chaos. All the possibilities here that could play out. So again, the lowest they can fall is a 5 seed. It's right there on the screen at Wildcats Tongue on Twitter.
Oh,
So,
okay. That guy.
Yeah, so you see all the different scenarios that play out here for Kentucky. And that's why we talked about earlier, like motivation level. Yes, Tennessee has high motivation here because I said previously, they win this game, I don't see how they're not a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, no matter what happens in the SEC tournament, because I just don't think it matters. But, you know, talking about Kentucky and what they've got, all these possibilities. I mean, again, if you want to look at one here in terms of like projected favorites and underdogs, the most likely of this group is what? Kentucky losing to Tennessee, Alabama beating Arkansas, Auburn beating Georgia, right? Which, if you see on the screen here, that drops Kentucky to the 5 seed in that scenario. So, again, there's a lot that, you know, you kind of play out here and see sort of how it unfolds. Yeah, so like I think that motivation level for Kentucky, I think if you just look at this and think, all right, well, there's a lot on the line for Tennessee. There's a lot on the line in Kentucky here too. That double bye and also seeding in the NCAA tournament. And so, like you said, Max, I think what's most stood out to me, and this is what I had in my notes, is the spot from that game last time for Kentucky was just not a good one. And, you know, it's like, is this one any better? You get Tennessee, who just wrapped up the regular season title, but it'd be different if like Tennessee had already wrapped up, you know, a number 1 seed or had no shot at a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
It'd be a little bit different maybe. But these are two teams, matchup wise, there are just so many things, you know, the guard play, what rotation of front court guys does Kentucky roll with in this game? Always seems to be the question, you know, and all those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, it sets up for quite a matchup here with these two. So,
all right, predictions. I like predictability. I feel like this is a world of uncertainty in college basketball this year, and especially so with Kentucky, although Kentucky has been more predictable of late. But, Max, I was kind of hoping that in that defensive efficiency stat from the 13th on, Kentucky would rank a little better than 64th to whatever it is. That's a big improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Is it enough to stick with Tennessee? I don't think so. I think this could be a letdown spot for Tennessee because of the big wins recently, having wrapped up the conference title. But I don't think it is because I think Tennessee's got a lot to play for. I think if Tennessee beats Kentucky, I would think Tennessee's probably in the driver's seat for a 1. Tennessee doesn't beat Kentucky. Who knows? You know, you lose a game in Nashville earlier than you're supposed to. Arizona, North Carolina win their conference titles. You just don't know where it's going to go. I like maturity. I think Tennessee's been a very mature team. Tennessee's nights off, I mean, it had been very few. You had the inexplicable thing that happened to A&M. I just think that was the wheel of randomness hitting us there. I think you play that game several more times, and it probably ends differently. Tennessee's an older team. It's a more mature team. It defends very consistently. It is at home. You don't bet against the Vols in a food fight, and I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm torn on this. I know who I'm picking. I'm torn on this though because I love to go with those spots. I love to just lean into them, especially this time of year, right before conference tournaments. I was talking about it with you guys in our reaction video, getting flashbacks of A&M beating Alabama last game of the regular season last year, just with how the motivation lies. So I think Kentucky is definitely live here. But this is what I'm looking at. Tennessee has played conference games against, now these are high octane offenses, Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama again, Florida. They're 5-0 in those games. Haven't even looked like they were going to struggle in those games. We've said it a million times. I'll say it 1,000,001. This is the type of game Tennessee likes to play this year. They'll fly up and down. They got a better defense, but with Dalton Connect this year, their offense is just as good, if not better, than most of their opponents. So the spot is there for Kentucky. I'm not going to say it's not, but I just think that this fast-paced type of game is what Tennessee has just been cruising through this whole season, and I'm not going to go against it now. So I'll go Tennessee.
Well, look, Kentucky's won 3 of the last 4. If you see these guys laughing, it's because we had to edit out my previous response here because I can't add. Kentucky has won 3 of the last 4 in Knoxville. And, again, a couple of them have not necessarily been close. But, this is one of those games where, like you said, Max, it feels like there's a little bit something more to this one than maybe meets the eye, especially – like you said, I don't think this is going to be a double-digit spread in Tennessee's favor. We know Kentucky is good enough to beat anybody when they're playing well, and they played pretty well here recently. But, I'm just going to make this simple. And perhaps this is very fitting for Tennessee fans.
Oh, no.
The biggest
Are you going to do it?
regular season finale, the thing that Tennessee fans have feared the most, is the Southeastern 14 kiss of death all season. And we're going to do it to you on the final regular season game of the year for the Vols. Give me Tennessee. Kentucky hasn't really usually – I don't know if Kentucky's ever been the product of the Southeastern 14 kiss of death in reverse. If you really think about it, right? Because when would we have all picked against Kentucky? Because I think the first Tennessee-Kentucky game, did we not split on that? I'm pretty sure. I don't think we all picked Tennessee. I probably picked Kentucky now that I think about it.
I can't remember.
I couldn't tell you, though. But my point is, maybe this is what Kentucky needed this season. They needed to finally find themselves in this position to where, okay, maybe this is what's going to jumpstart the next national title run right here. Is the Southeastern 14 kiss of death. But I'm just taking Tennessee too. I think, again, they've got something to play for here. A number 1 seed. They're locking it up. I don't even think it's a probably. I think they lock up the number 1 seed if they win. And so, knowing that, I am gonna pick the Vols in this one. So,
can you believe what we just did to Tennessee, Max? What this man it wasn't us. It was this man to my left as you look at it.
Can I just also point something out here? We picked Tennessee. When was the last time we unanimously picked Tennessee against Auburn? Yeah. So let's not kid ourselves. Tennessee, we're having fun here, but you guys, it'll be okay. Like this Southeastern 14 kiss of death nonsense that's out there, this hysteria surrounding this thing here. It's fine. We the last big home game Tennessee had, we did the same thing and they won. So Tennessee fans, calm down. Kentucky fans. Look, like I said, it's wild to think we've gotten through an entire SEC slate where I think it's the first time all year we've all picked against you. So,
listen, if Kentucky can go into Auburn and win there by double digits, they're game. They are fair game here.
Tennessee may be so good though that they're just impervious to the kiss of death. It may not matter.
Oh no! It was fine before that.
Reese.
Oh,
you know
Reese
is
going to be after me now.
It's time.
Reese is throwing eggs at the screen.
Oh my
right now.
goodness! What did this guy just do? Anyways, Kentucky. It's going to be an entertaining game. I don't know if it hits 103-92 like last time, but man, I think this is going to be fascinating because. Yeah, if Kentucky plays well, we know kind of the history in the SEC tournament and all these other things. And, boy, I'm so curious to see seeding-wise what happens here based on who wins this game, which we know Tennessee's the one, but where does Kentucky wind up? Who are they paired with? All these other things. Yeah. How about a quick question? If it's not Dalton Connect, who's the MVP of this game? Who are we talking about the most coming out of this game?
That's a great question.
We're going to make it quick here, but I just think there's so many potential options that we're going to all take a chance and pick one guy and see what happens.
If it's not Connect,
Ziegler.
That means that Kentucky probably played a pretty good game.
That's
I want
where
to say
got
Jonas Adu, but Kentucky's size inside could be a little bit of an issue.
I will go with JP Estrella. No, I'm joking. I'm gonna.
Oh, poor JP. Don't do that.
I'll go with Zakai Ziegler. Zeke's had a good game last time too, I think. So.
All right. So the reason I asked that question is because Max sort of hinted at it, but why I put the Dalton Connect caveat in there is because if Dalton Connect is not the leading thing we're talking about coming out of this, I'm going to say Kentucky's got a great chance to win. So
Yeah.
I'll say it's Mr. Big Shot Antonio Reeves on the other side, going off, and maybe he's the guy we're talking about coming out of here.
Has Tennessee won one of these high-scoring things with Connect having an off day?
Yeah, they just did it on Saturday.
Well, that wasn't a high-scoring. Oh, wait. Okay, Saturday. I'm thinking Wednesday. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's yeah.
But that wasn't as high-scoring. Like, this game's not going to be 81-74. There's going to be more points than that.
I mean, that was Alabama.
I mean, look, the last time Tennessee beat Kentucky, what happened? I mean, Ziegler and James scored 26 each.
Yeah.
So it's not like Connect just went crazy that game. He had 16. But, like, for Connect, that's like 16. No big deal.
I'm telling you, we gotta. I know the offense suffers a lot to the eye test when he goes out. But I'm telling you, Tennessee has been able to prove us wrong more often than not when we say like, well, what happens if Connect has an off night tonight? He's done that, not an off night, but he doesn't put up his 30 points. He's done that multiple times here from like February on, and they've won multiple times.
Well, you saw it against South Carolina. Ziegler and Adu hit some big shots for them down the stretch. So,
yeah. I mean, like there's, I asked that question because there's a lot of possibilities. And I know you guys mentioned earlier, but because we said last time, I mean, not having DJ Wagner, how different is that game in Lexington? You know, it's
huge.
So there's a lot here. Should be great.
We'll recap it for you, probably live on Saturday night.
Yes.
We may do a little something Sunday too. We gotta figure out schedule. There's a lot going on here between basketball and other stuff. Anyway, we will talk about it at some point. Best way to get it: hit the subscribe button, enable your notifications, give us a like if you don't mind. That helps. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline.